Well, we're staying here with this big breaking story that's coming in right now with an Air India Express plane that was while landing at the Calicut airport has overshot the runway, reached the end and overshot, and as per the message that's coming in from DGCA right now, this was the Air India Express AXB1344 and it was a flight coming in from Dubai. After landing, it continued to run at the end of the runway and fall down into the valley and broke it into two pieces. So technically not exactly a crash, but perhaps this is because of the wet runway that the aeroplane was unable to come to a stop at the right time, has overshot the runway and fallen into a valley, into a deep gorge at the edge of the runway itself. This is what the DGCA seems to be suggesting. Even local reports are saying that early reports indicate aircraft fell into a 35 feet deep gorge and split into two. People are being rescued, pulled out from the aircraft as we speak and being taken to the nearby hospitals, and medical emergency services are already on the spot. There are reportedly 190 people on board, including 174 adults, 10 children, 4 cabin crew and 2 pilots. This was a flight that was coming in from Dubai as part of the whole program that the government is running to repatriate Indians who've been stranded outside, and a large number of them in the Middle East and Dubai, especially from the state of Kerala. One of those flights. This incident has taken place in Karipur, at the Karipur airport. The district disaster management authority is currently taking care of the rescue operations and carrying out the rescue operations. This airport itself, viewers, is one of those tabletop runway airports, which means it's like on a plateau but on a slightly elevated land than that surrounding it, and this plane has not been able to stop on time, which means that it's then fallen off this plateau into a 35 feet deep gorge. Let me also tell you what Mr. KJ Alphonse has also right now tweeted about it, and he is also quoting the same information that we've got. He is saying it's the second tragedy of the day in Kerala. Air India Express skids off the runway at Kozhikode, front portion splits. He is saying that one of the pilots is no more. Lots of passengers are injured. We don't have an official confirmation on this so far. Passengers have now been evacuated and taken to the nearby hospitals. That is what Mr. KJ Alphonse, who's of the former state tourism minister and also from the state of Kerala, has tweeted. Air India Express plane, it's not technically a crash, but it's not been able to stop and it skid off the runway and then fell into a gorge. So that's what's the information that is coming in right now, and we're playing out these visuals for you. You can see in the visuals the aircraft has been split into two. And on the other side, you can also see that some of the passengers who've already been taken to hospitals and are being provided emergency services. It's raining. It's been raining there. The runway would have been wet, but as per the DGCA message, the civil aviation regulators message, the visibility wasn't so poor. It was about 2,000 meters, but we will have to wait and watch to know what happened. Why did this take place? 180 to 190 people on board. That's the information we are getting right now. Okay, while we await for more information, and we're constantly tracking this story that has taken place, a plane that skid off during landing at the Karipur airport. It's happened at about 7:45 p.m. today. That's what the Kondotri police is saying in Kerala. At about 7:45 p.m. this incident has taken place. Right now we're given to understand, as per the message, the tweet put out by KJ Alphonse, that all the passengers have been evacuated. The DGC itself is saying that there were 191 people on board. 191 people on board. This is a figure we're getting from DGCA. Visibility 2000 meter. Heavy rainfall. After landing at runway 10, the plane continued running to the end of the runway and then fell down into this deep gorge or valley, as some are saying, and that's where it split into two pieces. Captain Panesar, former Director for Flight Safety and Training, is with us to help us understand what could have possibly gone wrong here at the last minute. Captain Panesar, help us understand, if the plane had landed but wasn't able to stop on time, could it be due to the conditions on the runway?
Well, let me tell, there are 2-3 factors which will definitely be, we'll find it out after the DFDR readout and inquiry, but I can assure you the pilot must have come with a very high speed because the runway is very long. On a wet runway, every aircraft, we have certain procedures to follow, and the
We seem to have lost that line. Unclear line with Miss Captain Panesar. Captain Panesar, I'm going to try and come back to you, but I'm just looking at a report that has right now. That I'm just looking at a report that was filed last year, actually, and when a audit was carried out into safety standards, there were quite a few lapses that emerged at this airport, at the Calicut airport. Vinay Tiwari, our managing editor, also continues to stay with us. Let me go across to him on this. Vinay, obviously we are not saying that could be the reason or is directly connected, but we do know that this airport was under DGCA's scrutiny last year.
Absolutely. So you're absolutely right. We're not saying that this particular incident is related to this because we don't have enough information on it. And we're still waiting for an official word from either the DGCA or the government on what was the possible cause. Obviously, it's too early to say that. But I think it's important to point out that the DGCA had conducted a check of that airport last year and had issued a show cause notice to the airport for several lapses. And one of the big lapses that they had noticed was that there is something called the touchdown zone at an airport strip. This is the zone where the planes are supposed to land and then, of course, taxi on the runway before moving away to the parking lot. And the inspection had said that there were cracks that were observed on the touchdown zone 28 and along the marking CL, which is a technical term used for the runways. And they'd also said that there was an excessive rubber deposit. Remember, at airports, when the planes touch down, there is a lot of rubber deposit that accumulates on the airstrip because of the tires coming in contact with the airstrip and because of the friction. And removal of the rubber on the runway surface is something that has to be done regularly. Large airports, especially where there are multiple landings, sometimes carry out this rubber removal every day, every night, or every alternate night for sure. In this case, they seem to have found excessive rubber deposits, which is obviously something which is of risk. They had also found water stagnation of about 1.5 meters length in the area between the runway edge and the intermediate turn pad on runway 28. Now, turn pad is the point from which the airport, after landing, when it is taxiing on the runway at high speed and it slows down, there is a particular calculation that is done from the point of landing till the end of the runway. When the plane reduces its speed, switches its flaps off in the wings and then turns either left or right to go towards the main parking bay. So this is the 3 big things that they had noticed. Now, as we said again and again, we are not saying this is linked, but certainly they had found several cracks in the runway. They had found rubber deposits to be extra, and they also found water accumulation in many parts. And remember, what we've been reporting is Kerala is experiencing heavy rains, and this area too had rainfall, and possibly the weather may have contributed to some extent to why this particular accident has happened. In fact, in that report, Tanvi, they had said that the portion of the apron surface was about 111 meters of sound to be damaged. That's quite a large area for a damage to be found in the airstrip. So this was a fairly damning report. We don't know whether action was taken post this show cause. Maybe it is quite possible that the airport authorities actually fixed it and things had become fine and fit for travel. That's entirely possible. We must say this. This is a caveat that we are building in here. But clearly, this airport was under scanner, and this particular inspection had happened because there was a particular flight that had its tail hitting the runway while landing, and post that particular incident, this particular inspection had been carried out where they found these lapses, Tanvi.
Yes, absolutely, Vinay. We don't know if the two are connected, if any action was taken after these findings. But we do know that now DGCA has ordered another investigation in an inquiry into what has happened. But that's protocol. They would do for anything, for the smallest of the thing that goes wrong. And this is a massive, massive tragedy that has taken place. Alphonse KJ, Mr. KJ Alphonse, former minister, has tweeted saying, second tragedy of the day in Kerala, Air India Express skids off the runway at Kozhikode, front portion splits. He is saying a lot of passengers are injured. He is saying the pilot is no more. We don't have an official confirmation from local authorities right now with us, but all passengers have been evacuated. He also says very lucky that the aircraft didn't catch fire. I'm going to try and go across to Captain Panesar, who was with us, and also a few other aviation experts who are joining us to help us understand what's gone wrong here. But for our viewers to understand, this is one of those airports that's constructed and is made on a plateau. It's on an elevated land with a gorge around it. And so if an aircraft is unable to stop on time and goes beyond the boundary, then it will fall into such a gorge, which is what reportedly has happened. That's what the local media channels are reporting right now, that it's fallen into a 35-feet gorge. And that's how the plane has split. Because for the aircraft to split in such a manner means that there has been a heavy impact that's hit the plane. We don't know so far about the injuries. We did get some reports and visuals coming in of the passengers who are being given right now emergency treatment, have been evacuated and taken to the hospital, but we don't know what the details are. About 191 people were on board. 191. Kerala has been witnessing the heaviest rainfall this season in many parts, and this is this area, including this area in Kozhikode, and that's what's happened right now. Of course, when a detailed investigation will take place, but the fact perhaps that it was trying to land and couldn't stop does indicate that the weather conditions perhaps had a part to play in this, although the visibility itself wasn't so bad.
Absolutely. I mean, look, there are two tabletop runways in this country. One is, of course, the Mangaluru airport. And remember, that airport too had seen an accident when a flight, coming in from Dubai, ironically again, had veered off the runway and had crashed. And this is eerily similar to that one. That particular incident, had happened in 2010. And this particular airport is the second tabletop runway. Now, as you were trying to explain to our viewers, tabletop runway is very peculiar, where the runways
for just a bit, but I believe we have Vivek, our Kerala correspondent, with us. So let me just quickly go across to him for what are the officially authorities telling us. Vivek, tell us.
Yes, what I understand is that the real cause for this is the accident is the bad climate over there. 2 casualties has been confirmed. That's what I understand. There was heavy rains while the flight was landing over here, and the pilot could not actually gauge, could not view the runway, because this is a tabletop runway. And, since there was no fire and, there was no explosion that was seen, was witnessed, what I understand is that the casualties, will be very, very less. A major tragedy has been averted. That's what we exactly understand from the ground sources in Kozhikode. There were 191 people. All those people who have been, moved to the nearby hospital. 27 people have been moved to a Mercy hospital, and then there is a hospital called MIMS, the Malabar Institute. Even they have been moved over there. The situation, there is a sense of panic out there because a large number of people have rushed to the spot, and the police are now trying to move the people away and trying to identify if at all any people is stuck, anyone is stuck inside that area. The plane has been, has got pierced into two pieces. The cockpit and the front door has been completely damaged, in the intensity in which, the plane has crashed. The plane has, broken it exactly into two pieces. And the main cause was, the plane actually completely got skidded away from the runway. It was indeed heavily raining out there. This incident took place exactly at 7:38. Actually, the plane, has crash landed and it went at least 80 feet down. It fell in 80 feet down, and what I understand is that the front door has been, broken completely, and the plane was completely damaged. The cockpit was damaged. The front door was damaged. Now all those people are being moved to the hospitals nearby. The condition of the co-pilot is a bit serious. That's what I understand. More details are yet to come at this point of time. We don't know exactly was the condition of the other people. Since it was a tabletop runway, the pilot completely lost control. And what we understand is that since there was no explosion, no fire or something, that was seen over there, that what we understand from the sources is that, there is very less chance of, a major casualty. The casualty number, is not going to be high. Two people are reportedly dead. That's what I understand from the sources. A number of people have been injured. The MLA over there has informed this, and they have been taken to 3 different hospitals at this point of time. More details are yet to come in the coming, in the coming hours. We get a clear picture of the intensity of this particular air crash, which has happened in Calicut. Remember, there are, this is a Vande Bharat flight, and this flight actually landed exactly at 7:31. And 2 people, the death of 2 people has been confirmed right now. It is the IX 1344 Dubai-Calicut flight, which has met with the accident, and the whole aeroplane was, has been broken into 2 pieces during the landway. During while it was, coming in the runway, it just got skidded, and it just went. It lost its control, and the aeroplane actually fell into a pit which was 80 feet, beneath the runway. Remember, this is a very small runway as we concern. The front part has been completely damaged. The cockpit has also been damaged. The police, the locals over there, they are trying their best to ensure that each and every person who is stuck in that flight has been moved to the respective hospitals at this point of time.
താങ്കൾ സംസാരിച്ചുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്ന വ്യക്തി താങ്കളുടെ കോൾ ഹോൾഡിൽ വെച്ചിരിക്കുകയാണ്.
Okay, we're going to go back to we're going to go back to Vivek in just a bit and get you more details as well. But like Vivek was also pointing out, this is a tabletop runway, which is and the aircraft fell off, overshot, couldn't stop, fell off the runway, and then fell into that deep gorge. Now the numbers, we're not too sure about the depth of that gorge. Some reports suggest about 35 feet, others saying 80 feet, but the passengers have been taken to the nearby hospital. Vivek was saying that the co-pilot is in a serious condition, but we don't know about the other details. We're going to try and go across to some of our experts as well to get you more details on what this could be. Let me see if Mr. Vipul Saxena is with us. Mr. Saxena, to your expertise, if a plane overshoots the runway, a tabletop runway in bad weather conditions, could it be because of a slippery runway, because of the rain, heavy rain, or could it also be an error to understand just the various factors involved?
See, the Calicut runway is a very, very tricky runway. One of the most tricky runways earmarked by the various reports that this runway is one of the difficult runways to operate from because of the terrain of this runway around. It's a tabletop runway, and its length also is just about 2,800 meters, which is barely about 9,500 feet or so. So in such situation, there are various factors which are very, very critical to to operate from this runway, especially for the landing, wherein the wind conditions, what kind of wind conditions are there, and smallest component of tailwind, strong tailwind can really create havoc in landing. Another thing is, if it was raining, then if what is the water state over the runway? So if there was water over the runway, then it makes landing more challenging, because there can be skidding because of the water over the runway. Apart from that, loading of the aircraft, how much load was there, what height this aircraft came, and what was the landing point, how ahead of the threshold this aircraft landed. So there are various factors which need to be seen. But yes, this has been one of the very challenging aircraft, and mostly all airlines know about it, and they generally keep crew who has been operating from this runway, off and on.
Yes, in fact, Mr. Saxena, like you rightly pointed out, this is one of those tabletop runways. The other one, of course, and these are the most challenging ones. But what's usually the protocol when, especially in tough weather conditions, in a place like this where this danger of overshooting is always there, which means you have to be extra careful. You're saying, what is the protocol that needs to be followed for landing and takeoff operations?
So yeah, I've operated from this runway for quite a number of times, and even in normal condition also, this is very difficult runway to operate. So especially now when the weather is so bad, and I'm sure there must be heavy rains going on there. So it becomes very prudent on the part of air traffic controller also to sufficiently warn the pilot about the runway state, runway conditions, and how accurately the wind components are measured and passed on to the aircraft. That plays very big role. So water condition on the runway, the wind directions, and on this particular runway on tabletop, when the aircraft as it comes closer to the landing point, the wind becomes more tricky, more violent. So many a times pilots don't really feel very comfortable while landing on this aircraft on this runway. So the landing point makes very critical judgment for the safety of the aircraft in such conditions.
Yes, extremely critical, because in normal conditions, and then you add to that the weather conditions as well, that makes it even more challenging. But of course, what remains to be seen is if the pilot was warned. Mrs. Saxena, how quickly and basis what factors and decisions are taken to stop landing or takeoff operations when there are such kind of concerns?
See, normally, especially on this particular airfield, going around also is very tricky and very difficult. So from beginning of the approach itself, the pilot has to be very accurate, very clear about his landing point. Because when, as I said, that when it comes to the closer to the landing point, when you flare for the final touchdown, that time the turbulence becomes really very challenging for the aircraft. And in that case, if you overshoot also, and then there's a water on the runway, I mean, it's taking a very big chance with the safety of the aircraft and the passengers.
I just want to point this out again, and this is a report that actually came over a year ago when DGCA had carried out certain check operations, and they had found that there were some lapses as far as following the safety rules are concerned at this airport, at the Calicut International Airport. In fact, if I may just read what the PTI at that point of time had said, the PTI had reported this, that there was a show cause notice that was issued to Calicut Airport and to the director, and this show cause notice said that there were cracks that were observed at runway 28 TDZ, which is the touchdown zone, and along runway CL marking at the runway 10 touchdown zone. Now, we do know that this incident has happened at runway 10. The touchdown zone is the part where the aircraft first contacts the surface while landing. The touchdown zone is actually ahead of the threshold area. That's what the report specifies. Now, we don't know if after DGCA sent this show cause notice, how quickly was there a response and if these things were fixed. But like we have been pointing out, this was a tabletop airport, which makes it even more difficult. Mr. Saxena, if you'll be able to shed some more light on this, there were specific recommendations that the Air Marshal Gokhale report had made after the Mangalore accident, which I believe, like you also said, was a tabletop runway just like this one. And that was the last crash that we saw in our country, something similar to this. If you can shed some more light on what was recommended at that point of time and if that actually ever got implemented in either Mangalore or Calicut.
I have operated from Mangalore as well, and if I compare between these two airports, I would put Calicut more challenging than even the Mangalore. Though Mangalore also is very difficult and very tricky runway to operate. But I barely remember that there was a DGCA report about the safety aspects of this airport as well, in terms of RSA, runway safety area marking and all that. The place available which is beyond the runway, which is basically for the safety area for the aircraft in case it overshoots. So there should be sufficient distance available. So there were certain very critical observations made by DGCA long time ago. I really don't know whether those were followed up or those were really complied with. That need to be checked. DGCA will be the right authority to comment upon that. But yes, DGCA had done quite a good job in that report, and even the Air Marshal report also was quite a comprehensive report about these airports.
Yes, in fact, if I can just talk about past incidents that have happened, similar tabletop runways in July 2019 at Mangalore itself, another Air India Express flight which was coming coincidentally from Dubai veered off the runway and halted in soft ground, but that was just a scare. We didn't have any casualties. It was a very relatively smaller incident than what we are looking at right now. We also then, obviously the big one was in 2010 in May, where the aircraft fell off the cliff at the end of the runway and burst into flames. At that time, 158 of the 166 people on board had actually died. Thankfully, this time the aircraft hasn't burst into fire, into flames, and so we are hoping that the casualties are bare minimum. And we're going to keep getting you more reports. Mr. Saxena, I'm going to request you to stay on with us because it's always helpful to have expertise like yours as we explain to our viewers what may have happened. Air India statement has come out now, and the Air India statement says incident involving Air India Express at Calicut, Air India Express flight IX1344 that was operating on a Boeing 737 aircraft from Dubai to Calicut overshot the runway at 7:41 p.m. 1941 hours tonight. No fire reported at the time of landing. There were 174 passengers, 10 infants, 2 pilots and 5 cabin crew members on board. As per the initial reports, rescue operations are on. Passengers are being taken to hospital for medical care. This is the update that's coming from Air India. Of course, Chief Minister himself has already issued a statement asking for immediate, emergency services to be deployed, and obviously there will also be an investigation. DGC has already ordered an investigation. Home Minister Amit Shah has also tweeted right now about this, saying distressed to learn about the tragic accident of the Air India Express aircraft in Kozhikode, have instructed NDRF to reach the site at the earliest and assist with rescue operations. Let me actually go across to Mr. Shivaraman, joining us on the phone line right now. Mr. Shivaraman, good evening. Thank you for speaking to us. Unfortunately, we're speaking at a very unfortunate time where this news has come in of an aircraft that had landed, or was landing rather, at the Kozhikode airport, overshot the runway and fell off the tabletop. We don't know about casualties so far. but I was just speaking to Mr. Saxena, Vipul Saxena, another expert, about the challenge of tabletop runways and how it becomes even more difficult during monsoon. Can you shed some light on, what precautions are taken at such runways and the kind of safeguards that are in place?
I would only just tell you that just now I got a call from my friend who reminded me of my report 30 years ago that I gave on the very same airport. After my personal inspection of the Calicut airport, I had given a report that one day an aircraft will fall into this ditch and people will die if precautions are not taken. This was as a consequence of the then minister's order that Air India should fly wide-bodied aircraft. So I had opposed the minister's decision and I got through that. And I laid down conditions under which flights can take off and land in this airport, not necessarily monsoon period, but even during ordinary periods. If somebody cares to look at that file of mine and the report that I recorded there, then they would know exactly what I had stated and what precautions should be taken. Number one, I had also ordered that no aircraft should run with full payload capacity, that they should run only at 2/3 of the payload capacity. Number two, they should be very careful that both the engines are operational. Number three, the braking condition of the aircraft, and there should be no default as far as the minimum equipment list is concerned. Thirdly, I had ordered during monsoon times, only those pilots who are qualified to land and take off during monsoon period should be permitted to fly into this airport and nobody else. Even flying into Calicut Airport, I had ordered pilots should be specifically trained because they must land at an exact point. Then only they can stop the aircraft at a particular place. Otherwise, the aircraft is likely to overshoot the runway. Now, unfortunately, these pilots might have been trained. They may be good also. And during the monsoon period, he might not have seen the point of landing. He might have landed ahead and then he could have skidded into the car. But if kindly look into the report, of course, it is 28, 29 years old, where I had recorded the very same thing, that the plane will run off this runway into the pitch. It is very unfortunate it has happened. And for the preventing this, I had suggested that they must construct some kind of a mound at both the ends of the runway so that even if the plane tries to overshoot the runway, it will just hit the mud wall and stop there. I don't know whether they carried it out or not. Obviously, they might not have carried it out because it fell into a ditch. It's really tragic, I would say that.
Yes,
in spite of the report of the then DGCA, on record, such a thing should happen.
Yes, in fact, I was also going to ask you, while you say you gave a report, sir, which, during your time, and after that we are given to understand, obviously, after the air crash that happened in Mangalore, there was another report that was prepared by at that point of time. We are given to understand that there is no update of even any of those recommendations were implemented. Mr. Shivaraman, how does this happen? Is it because we don't take our air safety very seriously when we know tabletop runways are challenging, when we know what happened in 2010 with that air crash? Should those things not have been implemented by now?
No, let me tell you one thing. You see, I left the DGCA in 1993. I became Revenue Secretary of India. So I had to leave immediately in these. But these reports had been prepared around 92, maybe 92, 93, just before I left. Now, the responsibility, DGCA has got a separate airport division, airport licensing division. They've got a separate division for it. I had created that division. Now, the airport manuals are prepared. For every airport, there is a manual. And in that manual, all these safety precautions are laid down or should have been laid down. I don't know whether for Calicut Airport, there is an airport manual. For Delhi Airport, I had prepared the manual. For Mumbai Airport, I had prepared the manual myself. But then, I left the place and my successor should have carried on with the work, which was certainly a good work to do. And in the case of the Calicut Airport and Mangalore Airport, my reports are there, were there. Whether they are there now or not, I do not know. Because the DGCA has got the fundamental responsibility of licensing aerodromes. They must visit and see whether the safety measures suggested by the DGCA, then DGCA, now DGCA, present DGCA, whether they have been implemented or not. If they have not been implemented, the DGCA has got a right to cancel the license of the airport. They can cancel the license of the airport. Now, in the case of Calicut
Yes.
and Mangalore, I oppose Madhura India was a good friend of mine. Both of us were at the same age. I had known him since Mansoor when he was really a Maharaja. So I told him, who asked you to give this public statement that you will ask Air India to take flights there? You have not asked my consent. So he said, who are you? I am a minister. I said, you may be a minister, but I am DGCA. And without my consent, no aircraft can take off from there. Then I laid down the rules. I visited these runways. I got simulator exercises conducted. Those exercises would be available with Air India. Those days, Air India it was. Those exercises would be available with Air India. Simulator exercises were conducted. What point landing should take place? What speed the aircraft would land? What should be the weight of the aircraft when it is landing? And they should have maintain a particular weight. Otherwise, the aircraft will have to land at a speed which they will not be able to break if there is some such problem arises. So these things are there. It's not that they are not there. The problem, I don't know your name. What is your name, ma'am? Hello?
Tanvi, sir.
Tanvi, you see, the problem is, when these reports are there, nobody follows it up. And some other DGC account. See, fortunately for me,
Yes.
I was also a pilot. I was a trained pilot, so I knew all these things. I knew by heart. I had myself done landing and takeoff on the simulators of the Air India and Indian Airlines at the time. So I knew the problems. The pilots used to teach me, the senior pilot. I used to do the landing and takeoff myself on the simulators to know the difficulties of the pilot, the dangers that
Yes.
were lurking. But
Yes.
nowadays, the DGCs are not like that, They sit in their seats, that's about all. And I'm sorry to say this. Otherwise, they should be running around looking at the airports during this season because this is a season for air crashes. I'm very sorry.
Yes,
I'm
all
very
right, Mr.
upset.
Shivaraman. I thank you for speaking with us. And I know it's extremely upsetting news, Mr. Shivaraman. And in fact, we are still getting in more details about the extent of injuries and casualties that there may have been. And we will wait for official confirmation again on this. But as one co-pilot is reportedly serious, and according to Minister KJ Alphonse, the one pilot has died. Let me see if I can also go back to Mr. Vipul Saxena as we get more and more news. Mr. Saxena, for the viewers to understand, for landing in these kind of tricky conditions at a tabletop airport, does it also require a certain level of expertise for the pilot, with certain extent of training before you're allowed to operate flights from such airports?
Yes, absolutely right. There have been guidelines from the DGCA particularly, and even the airlines have been quite vigilant about this, that familiarity about the terrain of such airport tabletop runways plays a major role while operating from such airports. So mostly the instructions are that the pilots who have operated from this airport only should be allowed to fly from this kind of runways, and they can also train the other pilots as well while they are operating. So because these tabletop runways have very, very unpredictable phenomena, which makes landing very, very challenging, because the runways all open from all around, and because of terrain so difficult, hills around and valleys around, it makes the wind pattern very, very uneven on the surface. When you come as you come closer to the surface,
Mr.
the wind
Saxena,
pattern
I'm going to
becomes
ask
very,
you. My apologies, Mr. Saxena, to interrupt you. I'm sorry, but I'll just come back to you in just a bit. But I've just been told that we also have Air Marshal Gokhale with us. Good evening, Air Marshal Gokhale. A terrible news coming in right now. We don't know the extent of the loss or casualties, but it does seem that this aircraft that was landing from Dubai overshot the runway and then fell off into the gorge, into the valley over there, and that's how it split into two. Air Marshal Gokhale, you are the one who headed that inquiry report when a similar incident or more horrendous one happened in Mangalore, and you had given a set of recommendations on how to ensure this doesn't happen. To your mind, were those implemented at either Mangalore or even this Calicut airport?
To my knowledge, a number of them have been, I have not been able to follow up whether all of them in. But since it's a parliamentary inquiry, it is mandatory that there is a follow-up and all the recommendations are implemented. So I presume, I know of some of them which have happened, which comes out in newspapers, but I have not really followed up with the ministry to know whether they have happened or not.
If I can ask you, Marshal Gokhale, what were the key recommendations? I mean, I was just reading some of them, but for our viewers to also understand, what you recommended that would ideally help us avoid such situations.
They were, mainly we were highlighting the issues of CRM, that is, cockpit resource management between the pilot and the co-pilot. And we found that because this may not be applicable here, because that time there was a foreign captain and the Indian co-pilot, and there was hardly any dialogue with them. And the captain was at that time sleeping for quite some time, on the while flight. So that was one issue. But however, I think in this case the captain is an Indian and I think experienced pilot from ex-Navy, I'm told. The other thing was being too much into automation. That is, people tend to forget the basic flying because they rely on so much of autopilot and various things. So they generally tend to go mainly by what autopilot is showing and not as much by the visual references like a typical pilot would do. But, in this case, I really don't know the entire details. But there is one thing which comes to my mind is, of course, the weather related, because at the moment Kerala is facing a lot of rains. And in case the weather has not been good, runway wet, because the wet runway has also a problem of braking. And in case, the brakes are not able to catch on to that particular runway, then the aircraft skids. What I hear from the news is that aircraft is skidded. Luckily, it landed 1-0. Now, another thing which I notice is that most of the time, when the weather is bad, instead of westerly wind, you get an easterly wind. That means 1-0 runway in use. And this particular aircraft was, in a way, I would say, fortunate that 1-0, the fall after the runway is not too much. They, I think, fell about 30-odd meters, I'm told. And because of that, luckily, the aircraft had not caught fire as compared to what happened in Mangalore. Otherwise, there could have been more casualties.
Right. In fact, if I can just read out to you the initial message we got from DGCA and you can help us decipher it more. Air India Express AXB 1344, Boeing 737 with 191 people on board, visibility 2000 meter, heavy rain after landing runway 10, continue running to the end of the runway and fall down in the valley and broke into two pieces. So the visibility was about 2000 meter, but there was definitely some heavy rainfall. Marshal Gokhale, I'll ask you also this question, what I was discussing with our earlier expert. For such airports, aren't there rules, specific rules, as to when to stop the takeoff and landing operations? Considering it's a tabletop, there is always a danger of skidding and there is heavy rainfall.
No, there are restrictions by the airlines as well as by not from the airport as much, but they give out the weather and it's the captain's minimum which is most important, whether he's been route checked for that particular airport and, these kind of tabletop runways, to my best of my knowledge, most of them are cleared only for very experienced pilots. There are these, test flights which are carried out along with the DGCA experts. And only then they are cleared for such kind of. It has happened it is such a surprising thing that every 10 years we have had this kind of a unfortunate accident. I was just going through the accident which we investigated was on 22nd May 2010 when the Mangalore accident, that's almost 10 years back. And 10 years before that was an accident in Patna, where again it was not Air India, but it was an Air India affiliate, as you know, which had the accident, and of course people expired. All of them died there. So it's a something that one needs to watch out in terms of what exactly is the weather and how can the braking be affected, because there is a film that takes place on top of the runway. And if the water doesn't drain out quickly from the runway, then it can lead to the tires skidding. And that can happen, and then the aircraft is really speaking not able to stop, and it is out of control, and that is where the skid takes place. So in this case, the choice could have been that he goes to another runway to land, or to diversion as you call it. But as I said, it's too early for me to make any comments. I know one thing is that unfortunately the aircraft has crash landed and broken, and but one good thing is that many people have been saved.
Yes, I think the good point, like you also said, was that because perhaps it didn't fall off to that depth, or and the fact that it didn't catch fire, we may be able to, and we are hoping that there will be fewer casualties. Visuals, we've already got some reports coming in from the hospitals where passengers have been taken and treatment is being given right now. Of course, Marshal Gokhale, the one question that comes up again and again is whether we followed the rules and regulations, or if anything could have been done to avoid this. Now, if I may just read out to you a report that was filed last year, and this happened to Mr. Vipul Saxena and Air Marshal Gokhale. This is a report that I'm reading to you from July 2019 on the same Calicut airport, where DGCA found safety lapses after the earlier Air India Express incident. So there was another one, but that didn't have any casualties, but obviously there was an investigation like DGCA does, and there were various lapses in safety standards that were observed. And I just want to read out this specific part. Now, it said that there were cracks which were observed at runway 28 TDZ, which is the touchdown zone, and along runway CL marking at runway 10. Again, the touchdown zone. Now, if Air Marshal Gokhale, if you can help us decipher this, what does it mean? The show cause notice said there was excessive rubber deposit which was observed in the area from runway CL marking to 3 meters on both sides of the touchdown zone.
Yeah, so the rubber markings basically come in because of the braking. The tires tend to burn, and they leave that marks. So they also add to skidding in a way at times, because the water plus the rubber, which is not really the one which is good for braking. But I'm sure the runway is supposed to be kept clean many times, and these kind of observations they should have been able to attend to. But yes, when I go through the accident list at Calicut from my open source that I have here, I can see that in August 17, almost just exactly 3 years, there has been a SpiceJet Bombardier which has skidded, and so there has been a skid there. There has also been earlier, there is also Air India Express 737, which has in July 2012 also skidded on landing due to heavy rain. So there is a chance that we should take into account many things which are related to weather, that kind of a drainage which I mentioned, because this is very important that along the runway the water is drained quickly, so that film of the water doesn't stay on top of the surface, which adds to the aircraft not able to brake and stopped.
In fact, at that time, they also found that the digital MET display for the wind indication was unserviceable and under NOTAM since many days, and is not in compliance with mitigation measures. Of course, we don't know after DGCA's notice if this was fixed. I'm sure it was because it's been a year, but the fact remains that the Calicut airport, or this specific airport, has repeatedly had many problems. In fact, if I just want to read out a tweet by Mr. Amitabh Kant, who's with the Niti Aayog now, but he was the district collector of Calicut at one point of time. And he's tweeted saying, devastated to hear about the Air India jet mishap in Calicut. It's a challenging hilltop airport. I was the district collector and I had got the runway extended from 4,500 to 6,000 feet because vast number of NRIs travel from this airport to Gulf and back. Pray for the safety of the passengers. Mr. Vipul Saxena, if I can come to you on this aspect. Obviously, the longer the runway, perhaps it's beneficial, but it gets very tricky on tabletops. The length of a 6,000 feet long runway would be adequate, or can it be something that we can look at increasing again?
No, currently I think it is about 9,400 feet to my knowledge, and it is safe enough to operate.
Okay.
Subject to the tricky point which I made very clearly, that landing point has to be very, very precisely marked and taken by the pilot very seriously. Then weather conditions. And here I would like to highlight one thing, that the DGC has laid down a protocol for all the airports for pre-monsoon some servicing and checks to be done. I hope that was complied by this airport, because as I have come to know that there was rubber collection on the near the central line, because as Air Marshal Gokhale said, because of landing, the tire loses a lot of rubber. And if the collection is too thick, it reduces the friction which is required for braking action of the aircraft. So that becomes very dangerous in such situation. And then if the pre-monsoon servicing not been done, the drainage will be blocked. So there are more chances of almost flooding of water over the runway, which probably the ATC operator may not be able to observe from the site unless some ground inspection was done. So there are many things which I'm sure will come out, which must have added, to this accident which has happened very unfortunately.
Yes, we will of course keep getting more details. There is a helpline number that has been put out for relatives of the passengers who were on board this aircraft that crashed at the Kozhikode International Airport. Relatives can call, and I'm just going to repeat this number. We'll gradually also put it out on the screens. 0495 237 6901. I'll repeat that, 0495 237 6901 of the number for Kozhikode Collector's Office, and anyone who's seeking information about their relatives who are on board should right now can call this number and seek more information. I'm going to thank Mr. Vipul Saxena right now and Air Marshal Gokhale. Thank you so much for joining us with your expertise as we continue to track this non-stop. I just need to take a very short break. We'll be back with more details on this Air India plane tragedy, this accident that's occurred in Kozhikode. 191 passengers on board, including infants and crew members. They've all been taken to the hospital, we understand, but emergency services are there right now, tracking constantly, bringing you more updates. Stay with me here on Mirror Now.